As you guys must know, this is the second session. We did a session last night and we exceeded the number of participants that we could have. So we've opened another one for those who would like to join again. At the end of the presentation, Brent will be collecting the questions that you guys have written in the chat window, and then I will be answering those. All right, so it is precisely 9 o'clock. So we are ready to start. And I'm super happy to have you guys here. I was going to do this session on my own with Brent, and I'm so happy we've opened it to other people so you guys can join. I am very, very excited to share with you in my opinion, one of the most beautiful places to dive in the world, which is the Philippines. I've been living there for 3.5 years. I've been working for Atlantis for 3.5 years. I actually been living there for almost 5 years, but 9 years ago I lived there for another year. And it's definitely one of the most diverse and interesting places to dive. What makes it so special is the fact that we have everything from the tiniest critters to massive whale sharks. And that is what makes Philippines so special. And so many people are returning to the Philippines time after time after time because there are so many places to dive in the Philippines. And we will talk about some of them tonight. Great. So in these days, unfortunately, all we can do is dream. Dream about the ocean, dream about the days where we can travel to places that we like. So dive in with me and let's dream on. So this is a very famous photo of the Philippines, top side. This is located in the island of Coron, which is one of the northern islands of the Philippines. And we've got these beautiful vertical cliffs with turquoise water all around, one of the most magnificent places really in the Philippines. And Philippines altogether is an archipelago of 7,107 islands, as the catchy slogan of the Philippine Department of Tourism says. But that's actually not true because they did a count in 2019 and they ended up with 7,461 islands. So that kind of hurt the catchy slogan. Nevertheless, it's a lot of islands. And as we put them together, we get a landmass the size of Italy. If you guys don't know the size of Italy, it's quite big. So actually, when you think of the Philippines, people think about many, many islands, and it's exactly what it is. But the landmass on its own is quite substantial. And it is a global hotspot for marine biodiversity. And why? That's because it's located in the northwest side of the Coral Triangle. And what is the Coral Triangle? The Coral Triangle is an imaginary triangle that ties together 6 aquatic nations in Southeast Asia and Micronesia. This area is quite unique because it covers a massive amount of ocean water. More importantly, oh, sorry, something happened to my shared screen. There we go. Most importantly is that we have over 500 reef-building coral species. That is about 75% of the corals in the world. And 3,000 different species of fish, which are about 60% of all the fish in the world. And 6 out of the 7 marine turtles. And heaps of variety within the Coral Triangle. Now, what does this mean? It means that every time you put a mask on and put your head in the water, you are likely to see more things than anywhere else in the world outside of the Coral Triangle. So in addition to this incredible diversity, we have, of course, species that are moving throughout the Philippines. And they are, of course, part of this wonderful diversity. We're talking about dolphins and tuna and jackfish and manta rays, whale sharks, dolphins, dugongs, big stuff, small stuff, schools of things, everything together. And that is what makes the Coral Triangle such a popular destination for diving, right? So we're talking about Indonesia and Malaysia and the Philippines. So this is a map of the Philippines. As you can see, we've got this map is actually representing some of the bigger islands, right? We can't see all 7,461 islands, but we can see one of the bigger islands, and I want to show you, and we will go on a journey from north to south throughout the Philippines. What are the places that we're diving in? And the most important, when you look at this map, what do you notice all around? Blue, a lot of blue. So all of this blue all around us are actually 4 major bodies of water. In the northwest, we're looking at the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea, depending who you ask. On the east side, we have the Pacific Ocean, and that's quite a long way to the next piece of land, which is the Americas. And then on the southern part, if you look at the southwest, we've got the Sulu Sea here, where my cursor is. And if we continue here to the left, you're going to see Indonesia and Malaysia. And here, the Celebes Sea in the south part of the Philippines. So this, guys, this is what makes the Philippines so special. 4 massive bodies of water, where the water rich in nutrients are migrating through the islands, and we are located 6 degrees away from the equator, and on the meeting point of 2 very important currents, the North Equatorial Current and the North Pacific Current, which means water rich in nutrients from the open ocean funnels through the Philippines island, creating an incredible breeding and growing grounds for various species. Whale sharks arrive to the Philippines to mate and to give birth. Many other species use the Philippine Islands and the canals between the islands, or the channels between the islands, to breed and have a safe place for the babies to grow. So when we're talking about the Philippines, we're talking about 3 major areas, diving-wise, right? Those are the areas I'm going to touch upon today. The first one, we look at the north part, which is here, the island of Luzon, where my cursor is. This is the largest island of the Philippines, and you can also see heaps of volcanoes all over. So the Philippines in its entirety was created due to volcanic activities, and we still have a bunch of volcanoes around. And so this island, Luzon, is where Manila is located, and this is where my cursor is, quite at the south part of Luzon. And then we have this channel here. It's called the Verde Passage. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then the island right beneath Luzon, this island where my cursor is, this is the island of Mindoro. Also has very popular dive sites. So that is area number 1, Luzon and Mindoro. Then we go to this skinny island here to the left on the west side of the Philippines. This island is called Palawan, and it also includes these 2 northern islands called Coron and Busuanga. Incredibly diverse dive destination by itself, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And the last area is this area here, a group of 6 islands called the Visayas, which in it you can find everything from the greatest mackerel to the giant whale sharks, sardines, thresher sharks, incredible corals. Anything that you would want exists in the Visayas. Wolves, shallow, it's all there. So one of the things that really makes the Philippines so unique is, of course, the corals. While the rest of the world is really suffering from coral bleaching and breakage, The Philippines coral health is incredible. We've been cooperating with the California Academy of Sciences that has not been only studying nudibranchs when they come over to Atlantis, mainly in Puerto Galera, but also have been studying the growth of the corals in a place called Apo Island, which is close to our resort in Dumaguete, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So what they found was that the growth of the corals is exceeding average growth around the world, and there is barely any bleaching. So when we talk about, let's go back to the map, reverse back, the island of Luzon, the island of Mindoro, yeah, and in those places we've got Anilao, quite a famous place for muck diving or macro diving, very close to Manila, about an hour and a half away from Manila, and the Philippine Department of Tourism has created that as a macro mecca. And then we've got that Verde Passage, if you remember. Right. In that Verde Passage, across from Anilao, we have Puerto Galera, which is one of the first places in the Philippines to become a mecca for divers. Why? A series of small bays create very sheltered area for diving, yet super diverse. Outside of the bays, very deep walls, 200 to 300 meters. That would be around 900 feet. And so we've got walls, swim-throughs, canyons, a great variety of fish, big stuff, smaller stuff. Anything exists in Puerto Galera, and that's why it became such a popular dive destination. And then in the middle of that Verde Passage, right between Luzon and Mindoro, Anilao and Puerto Galera, we've got Verde Island, which is where this photo that you're seeing on the screen is taken from. Verde Island, on scientific studies, is the most biodiverse point in the entire coral triangle, which technically makes it the most biodiverse point in the world. Yeah, pinnacles from 150 meters deep, that's around 500 feet, are rising all the way to the surface. Only the tip is showing, completely covered in corals. Millions of orange anthias, as you can see in the photo, massive fans, in huge sponges and barrels and everything that you can think of. Macro, migratory species, everything is there. It is definitely one of the most beautiful dives in the Philippines. It's got another dive site. We've dived the pinnacles, and then there's another one called the washing machine. If you catch it on a good current day, you will turn around. If you catch it on a mild current day, it's a series of 7 canyons, up and down, with incredible corals in them and beautiful marine life. So that is Verde Island. And then Apo Reef, which we'll talk about in a minute. So this is Puerto Galera. As you can see, bays. You can see Verde Island right across here where the cursor is. This island over here. And as we look at Mindoro and we look at the west side, second largest marine park in the Philippines is Apo Reef, a group of 3 small islands creating channels that are about 30 meters deep, sandy channels, water super rich in nutrients from the West Philippine Sea, and the Sulu Sea filters through these channels. You get incredible diversity of corals, lots of sharks, so all the reefies, the gray reefs, white tips and black tips, and schools of fish and rays. It is a beautiful destination, and what makes it also so beautiful is the fact that you can't go there on a day boat, which means that you have to take a liveaboard to go there, which means that most of the coastal fishermen are not able to travel all that far away and fish. So for us divers, right on. If we move to the south, remember that skinny island? On top of it, those 2 islands, Coron and Busuanga. Busuanga, of course, is very, very famous for this beautiful animal we can see here on the left of the diver, and that is a dugong, as everybody knows. Waiting for you to respond, but I'm speaking basically to myself and to my computer. So this is a dugong, and we have those in Busuanga. For those of you who know and love dugongs, you will know that dugongs are very shy. especially in Egypt, Palau and whatnot. You spot them from far, and the second you try to dive with them, they're off they go. The dugongs of Coron, of Botswana, are not. They're marine protected areas by the local communities. There are very strict regulations on how you can dive with the dugongs, how many people, for how long, and what's the distance and whatnot. So they've created a safe haven for the dugongs where they feel comfortable around people. So they're not afraid of people. We are able to go incredibly close. I went diving there about 1.5 years ago. We were so close to the dugong. He was literally swimming into our faces. We had to swim away so he doesn't climb on top of us. So it's quite an amazing experience for a lot of people to see this beautiful animal for either the first time or the closest or whatever it may be. As we move to the island of Coron, that is a very, very famous dive destination. It is the mecca of wreck diving in the Philippines. So back in World War II, where the Japanese were occupying the Philippines, in the battle, they were hiding in that channel between these two islands that I was showing you on the map. And all their massive, like, craft carriers and big, big ships with tankers and whatnot were hiding there from the Americans. We all know how that war ended, so we ended up with over 15 Japanese wrecks from World War II. They are mostly within recreational limits, so around 30 meters in depth, with an average length of 120 meters, or about almost 400 feet. Because this is a channel, the visibility is not incredible. Well, maybe our European friends will say, what? Because they're used to diving in 0.5 meter visibility in their lakes. But we're talking about 10 to 15 meters. That's around 50 feet. And it's a little bit murky from all the particles from the rust and whatnot. There is an incredible growth. You know, it's been 80 years. So we got a lot of corals, beautiful macro life, light penetration that we can do in, see plates and jeeps and cannons and whatnot. It's a really fascinating place to dive. I really like it. And if you remember, back, when we looked at that second photo of those vertical cliffs, that's Coron. And we can't talk about Coron without talking about Barracuda Lake, which is an insane place to dive. It is a landlocked lake. It used to be saltwater when the cliffs basically closed through tectonic activity. We closed this like a small lake in, but with rainwater and whatnot, now it's a freshwater lake. But because the area is volcanic, we have thermoclines, but not the thermoclines you're thinking, reverse thermoclines. So on the surface, we are at around 26 Celsius, which is about 75 Fahrenheit, give or take. Sorry, I'm a little rusty on my Fahrenheit. And then as we dive down at 10 meters, we are about 30 degrees Celsius, or about 88 Fahrenheit, or no, 82 Fahrenheit. And then at 15, we're at around 35, which is around 90 Fahrenheit. And then at 20 meters, we are almost at 40 degrees Celsius, which is almost 100 Fahrenheit. It is an incredible place to dive. Of course, this is fresh water, so the visibility is like air, maybe like the cenotes in Mexico, if you guys been diving there. We're diving alongside these beautiful vertical, deep, deep cliffs, and it's just blue everywhere, and we see these thermoclines. There is one barracuda. It's pretty big. I've seen him. And then on the surface on the safety stop, we've got these catfish that are climbing all over you. It's a really freaky dive. Very, very cool place to dive. Please do Google it after if you're interested. As we moved south to that skinny long island, Palawan, and in Palawan, there are a lot of places to dive, but of course, the crown jewel of the open ocean of the Philippines, one of the top 10 dive destinations in the world, is Tubbataha. And we won't talk about it at all, because there's nothing to say. As you can see where it's located, it's right in the middle of the Sulu Sea, where we're looking at the Philippines, right? So the Sulu Sea is here and here, and you see this very, very, very deep trench. And Tubbataha is right there, the largest marine protected area in the Philippines. It is manned year-round by rangers, and the entire marine park lives on the payment of marine park fees of divers. It is a success story in an international level. It is everything you have imagined to see. Walls about almost 1 kilometer deep, so 700 to 900 meters times 3, so that's almost 3,000 feet. And migratory species all day long, schools of fish, jackfish, barracudas, mantas, marble rays, anything really, whale sharks, hammerheads, not in the quantities you're thinking in cocos and stuff because it's quite warmer, but still we do get them as well, silkies, silvers, everything, and of course all the reefies, right? Incredible corals, massive fans. Okay, I have to stop because it is definitely one of the most beautiful places in the world to dive. I was there a year and a half ago in June and loved it. And now we go to that last group of 6 islands called the Visayas. Everything is there, if you remember, from the macro to the whale sharks. And a group of 6 islands, Negros, Cebu, Bohol, Leyte, Iloilo, and Siquijor, all of them with wonderful dive spots. As you can read along to the various names that I've put on here, you can pick Darwin, the mecca of critter diving in the Philippines. You can pick Moalboal for its sardine run, Malapascua for the thresher sharks, Oslob for the whale sharks, Panglao for beautiful walls and very, very nice macro, Balikasag for incredible walls, schooling fish, Kabila with its deep walls, and Leyte with its whale sharks. We can go on and on just about the Visayas. This is the group of islands in the Visayas, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Negros, which in normal days I call home. In this time, obviously, we're not there, unfortunately, due to this crazy pandemic that brought us all together tonight. So let's all look at the positive. But what makes Negros so special is that it's got 2 sides, Negros Oriental and Occidental. And the sand in Negros Oriental is black volcanic sand. So for diving, that creates a whole new spectrum of creatures, right? Because the contrast is different, so camouflage is different, behavior is different, everything is different. So while Anilao has become very famous macro destination, Negros is a magnificent critter and macro diving destination because of the black volcanic sand. And it's an untouched beach. Everything is green, coconuts everywhere. Ugh, I'm biased, it's my home. And about 45 minutes away from Darwin and Negros Oriental, we arrive at Apo Island, a small 1 square kilometer round island that is the longest lasting marine protected area in the Philippines since 1986. And if you want to hear more about what we can do as divers to support marine protected areas in the Philippines, how they even started, how they go about, what is conservation efforts in the Philippines, please join us on a webinar, not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. And we'll talk about Apo Island and the history of the marine protected areas in the Philippines, and as well as some scientific facts. So please do join us and stay tuned for that on our Facebook page. But Apo Island is one of the most beautiful places to dive because of the variety of corals. So we've got over 300 species of reef-building corals and 150 species of fish, heaps of sea turtles, banded sea snakes, spiraling jacks, the whole shebang. So now that we talked about like the main 3 dive areas in the Philippines, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do at Atlantis Resorts, and to expose you a little bit to not only the regular, okay, we're all going to go diving, is it drift, are we going back to the boat, what's happening, but a little bit on a higher level or a deeper level actually of what it is that we do. One of the things that we do is black water diving. I don't know if you've heard of this before. If you have, then please yawn politely, and then I can go on and explain to the ones who haven't. Blackwater diving, the idea is that juveniles migrating through the oceans with massive currents, right, are rising from the depth onto the sea surface to feed. When do they do that? When it's safe, at night, when the predators can't see them. So as we dive at night, and as we dive not on a sandy patch, but we're looking for more water under us, the deeper the water is, the better. We get small juveniles coming up to feed on plankton. Now, blackwater diving obviously changes with the light on the surface, or full moon, new moon, whatever, but we still, throughout the phases of the moon, definitely get incredible things that are coming up from the depth to feed. So how do we do this? We send out a boat before you guys go out. It's got a ladder, or a structure that looks like a ladder with 3 levels at 6, 9, and 12 meters. And then on those different levels, we put very, very strong lights. Why? Because we want to attract all these critters to come up towards us. We send the boat and we release that before you guys go diving. So by the time you wait about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the moon and depending on what comes up. And as we're starting to see things are coming up, you guys go in the water. What do we see? Like this juvenile wonderpuss, various species of fish, and all these crazy color jellies. So warmish shape, shining yellow and blue and red and green and purple, and you name it. It's like a little discotheque there. It is a haven for photographers because everything is about this big and smaller. But even if you don't dive with a camera, which I have to say I don't, you will see that all the photos in this presentations are courtesy my incredible friends. You just dive there and hold a flashlight in front of your eyes, holding on to the ladder and looking into this craziness that comes out from the deep. It is a dive from space. We offer that in both of our resorts. I definitely encourage you to jump in on one of those. So lots of juveniles, like we said, for example, this mantis shrimp. I can see this is a peacock mantis shrimp before it even got its colors. And it's about this big. So that is blackwater diving. Another thing that we do is called muck diving. Muck diving sometimes have negative connotations, or people say, well, I don't really know what this is. So let me tell you what this is. When I first moved to Negros, that was 3.5 years ago. So before that, throughout the years, I've lived and guided, as I am a retired dive guide, in Mexico and Yucatan, Dominican Republic, Honduras, Philippines, other islands, Palau. So I've seen quite a variety of things within the Caribbean and then in Southeast Asia, which is where the places I lived and worked. The first time I went into the water in Darwin, located in the island of Negros, I went like, oh, wow, it's a lot of sand. And as I started shifting my vision and my mind, crazy things started coming out of the sand. So muck diving is really us diving over patches of sand, seagrass beds, which, as you guys know, are a wonderful nursery for so many species, seahorses, frogfish, you name it, and or artificial reefs that are abundant in the area of Darwin. And we look for small things. We can spend about an hour on a rock and see incredible fish like this jawfish in the picture. As you can see, its babies in his mouth. What do we see when we go muck diving? We can see, I'm not even saying you can see a flamboyant cuttlefish. That goes without saying. Hunting, swimming, walking, you name it, you are going to get it. But these are the eggs of the flamboyant cuttlefish. As you can see, the babies are still white. And once they hatch, as you can see the one there in the middle, immediately they change their color, which is an incredible thing to see. They are actually cycling in 2-month cycles, so if you're lucky, you're going to see them in our Darwin location. Hairy frogfish, as you can see in the photo, 3 hairy frogfish, courtesy of Marty Snyderman. Thanks, Marty. And as if you look around, notice the coarse, dark sand. That is the sand that we have in Negros Oriental. Pygmy squid, the tiniest squid and the only squid that can turn its head 360 degrees, so basically around. It's so tiny it can't even swim, so it attaches itself to seagrass. Oh, and let me just show you, for those of you who are crazy for photos, because it's semi-transparent, if you look here, you can see the shrimp that it ate before. See the eye? Heaps of seahorses, pygmies, and whatever. Lots, lots, lots. I'm ashamed to say, almost like garbage. They're everywhere. And of course, one of my favorite nudibranchs, Shaun the sheep, or a leaf nudibranch, what we call a sap-sucking slug. If you try to say that now fast 20 times. Oh no, someone is unmuted. Who is that?
What?
Oh, mute yourself. But you did succeed for 4 times straight. We could have sat there and went for 40 minutes. Sap-sucking slug, what makes this nudibranch so special is that it lives in a particular plant, and then it draws the sap, which is basically the blood of the plant, out of this plant and partially digests it, which means that it is not fully digested in the body of the nudibranch. And then as the sap remains live, as you know, it is the sap that gives the green color to the leaves, and that is how the leaves or the plant is actually performing photosynthesis. So what this nudibranch does is able to partially digest that plas, and then through the sap, and then through a process called kleptoplasty, is able to do photosynthesis within its body. It is the only creature in the animal kingdom that is able to do that. And then of course we have its wonderful, colorful cousin. And all of those guys are almost everywhere in Darwin. They are about the size of half your fingernail. So it's very difficult to see if you don't have a camera. You can see them on the back of the leaf on the plant they live on, and you'll see these dots kind of like walking. And of course, another thing that we have everywhere where you have sand is octopus, right? Blue ring octopus. We talked about mimic octopus, wonderpus, coconut octopus, incredible variety, and they are so magnificent to see. I'm an octopus freak. And one of my favorite is, of course, the mimic octopus. The mimic octopus is a very interesting creature. Why? Because it is the only animal in the ocean that doesn't only mimic the looks of something else, but also the behavior. And it does that not only as a defense mechanism to camouflage itself from predators, but also as a hunting mechanism. So here in this image, you can see how it is pretending to be a spearing mantis shrimp. Or down here on the left, you can see the most common forms where you're going to find the mimic octopus, either as a flounder fish, which is the top one here, or as a banded sea snake, and of course, a lionfish. So that is a little bit about muck diving. And what is macro diving then? Some people may have looked at what I was saying and say, wait a minute, that's actually macro diving. Why is it called muck diving? So the main difference, at least in my mind, is macro diving has more of a reef setting. So for example, a pygmy squid, a pygmy seahorse will actually be inside a sea fan. So it's got more coral setting. We still look at very small things, but there is a reef around. And so that to me is the major difference between muck diving and macro diving. And of course, Philippines is wonderful for macro diving. What do we see when we go macro diving in the Philippines? Pygmy seahorse, over 2,000 different species of nudibranchs. I don't know if you guys know, but a nudibranch is a male and a female in every single individual. And here you can see coming out of its butt, is an egg sac. So what they do is they exchange sperm to fertilize each other. So if you're a nudie freak, you want to go to Puerto Galera. And if we talk about nudies, we have to a little bit touch upon the solar nudibranch. Unlike Shaun the sheep, which partially digests the sap of the plant that it lives on, this nudibranch actually has a symbiosis with an algae. So these brown patches are actually algae that lives on this nudibranch, does photosynthesis, and helps the nudibranch feed. And of course, in macro diving, we also find this magnificent critter called peacock mantis shrimp. This guy is about 10 centimeters long, more or less. But what's the most interesting thing about it, actually two most interesting things, its punch is the fastest movement in the animal kingdom. And its vision is the most elaborated vision system in the entire animal kingdom. So while we see about 10,000 colors, the peacock mantis shrimp sees about 110,000. Its vision is polarized, and it's not 2D or 3D, it's 4D. The reason it has such a beautiful vision, or such a precise vision, is so that it's able to hunt precisely and have the conception of space, depth, so he's able to either punch or, like his less colorful cousin, spear. That's the spearing mantis shrimp, the fish that go above its hole. And hornet ghost pipefish, those we see so much in the Philippines. I remember when I just moved to the Southeast Asia, Philippines was my first stop after the Caribbean. And the first time I went diving, I was guiding in Bohol, and it was the first time I saw an hornet ghost pipefish, and I saw a yellow one and an orange one and a black one, and maybe 2 to 3 different pairs of each color, and it was mind-blowing. And of course, as we said, in macro diving and everywhere really in the Philippines, we see colorful, healthy reefs. Barely any bleaching, barely any breakage, lots of colors. And for those of you who like the big guys, of course we have them. Thresher sharks in Malapascua, and if you're lucky in Puerto Galera in January and February. Whale sharks throughout the Philippines in various locations. Dugongs in Busuanga, and sharks, various types of sharks. Mantas, all the big guys are there. And we haven't even talked about the top side. I mean, guys, Philippines is an incredible tropical haven with waterfalls and hiking trails and incredible beaches. Do you know they shot Survivor there, right? Everything that you think in a tropical climate, you got it. I don't know if you're going to have a lot of time to go about above the water, because that's what we've spent most of our presentation on, but still, if you do, you will be carried away. So who are we, and why are we so good at what we do? We are Atlantis Dive Resorts. We operate 2 land-based resorts and a liveaboard. And the main difference is that these are dedicated dive resorts. Suggested by the name Atlantis Dive Resorts, we are a dive resort. Our resorts are geared for divers. We offer up to 5 guided boat dives per day. All of our guides are local guides. Almost all of them are homegrown. So from boat boy or tank boy, driver, waiter, you name it, taking them all the way through to dive master and instructor. What we get with that is, of course, the most important thing is to support local community and have it be engaged in the operation. Obviously, we are in the Philippines. Being a dive guide is a very, very prestigious job in the Philippines, and we want to be able to offer that to the community around us and not have in 2-year cycles foreign dive guides coming in and out and taking all the glory. The second thing we get is very knowledgeable dive guides who've been diving these sites for 10, 20, 30 years. In Dumaguete, we actually have a dive guide. His name is Jeannie. He must be pushing 50. He knows everything. Literally, people come to the resort and go, oh, I'm sorry, this is my list. These are the things I would like to see. And he goes, okay, yeah, here we go, there we go, there. And he finds things I wouldn't even dream of. So we have a very knowledgeable team of dive guides and a 5-star service. It starts from the gardener, goes through the restaurant staff, the kitchen staff with incredible food. I don't just say this because I work at Atlantis. I'm proud to work at Atlantis. And I always tell people my job ends when people come to the resort, because once they're there and they experience it firsthand, my job's done. We have dedicated camera rooms in both of our resorts and a massive camera setup area on our liveaboard Atlantis Azores. We also offer fluoro night diving, if you look here on the picture on the left. Yeah, and that's another thing that we offer, which is quite a crazy scenario during night dive. So you put these goggles on top of your mask, and then you have a fluoro flashlight, which means the only thing you're going to see are the things that reflect the fluoro light back. You don't see anything that's black. So if you're used to night diving and you do have some sort of orientation, that's all going to be gone because everything is going to be black if it doesn't shine back at you. Super cool dive. But as you can see, very big and spacious camera rooms. And when we offer 5 dives per day, we come back to the resort after each dive. So you can go into the camera room, change your camera setting, plug your camera to the flat screen there and see if you got it the way you wanted it, charge, whatever it is. So we have one resort located in Puerto Galera, remember, on that northern tip of Mindoro Island in front of Luzon Island. A wonderful place to dive if you're looking for variety. Walls, canyons, swim-throughs, macro, muck, giant clams, everything. And then our second resort is in Dumaguete in Negros Island, a beautiful tropic lush resort. Everything is green, papaya trees, bananas, orchids, pineapple everywhere. It's really a haven. We're facing east, so we're getting beautiful sunrises, wonderful walks on the beach. So that's the second location. That's where I live. And we have Atlantis Azores, our liveaboard, carrying 16 divers, doing 4 different routes a year. If you look at the boat, up here where my cursor is our freshwater jacuzzi. In the back is our grill, barbecue area. This is a lounge area. This is the salon. And look at this. 1/3 of the boat is a dive deck. So we dive off 2 skiffs. Very, very spacious dive deck in the middle, a massive table, 4 stories for camera setup. And where do we go on board Azores? So we do a route that starts from our Puerto Galera resort. We visit Apo Reef, remember, all the way back in the beginning of the presentation, 2nd largest marine park in the Philippines. Sharks, rays, schools of fish, and corals, that one. And then we keep going to Coron wrecks, so we do some rust. And then we finish off with the dugongs of Buswanga, a reef and rust route, incredibly diverse. And then we dive Tubbataha, which is only open for diving 14 weeks a year, from March till mid-June. And then we do 2 routes in the Visayas area. One of them is a Bohol route incorporating whale sharks, sardines, beautiful scenery of Pescador Island, Apo Island, Balikasag off Bohol. That's a 7-night trip, departing from our Dumaguete resort. And for the more adventurous ones who are happy to go on a 9 or a 10-night trip, we do a Cebu Malapascua route. Similar stops to the Bohol route, but we go all the way up around Cebu Island to dive with the thresher sharks in Malapascua. So we are waiting for you guys. We're waiting for this crazy epidemic to end. And we would like you to come and join us and dive with us and set your mind free. And this ends our dream for tonight. It really makes me want to go diving, absolutely. Hop on our Facebook page now. Look at the different events that we're doing on webinars. So Brent will be here next Tuesday talking about underwater photography. I'll be there the following week talking about the history of marine protected areas and what they are in the Philippines. And then Brent again the week after that. So, you know, we're with you. We're taking you through April. We're taking you diving in your minds. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye-bye.